Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is John Harkins. I'm the Events Associate for the French-American Chamber of Commerce in New York chapter, and we're happy to welcome you to our webinar today, the COVID-19 impact on online behavior, focusing on the luxury industry. Just a quick word about our organization. The French-American Chamber of Commerce's mission is to provide the opportunities, experiences, and understanding that empower successful business relationships between and for members. The FACC-New York chapter counts a mosaic of 1,000 members, representing sectors from tech to food, finance, and other professional services. These members have complimentary access to digital events featuring top industry experts and leaders, as well as personalized member-to-member introductions, access to the FACC member directory, and of course, we'll be able to connect with other member attendees of this webinar. Now, just a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar will last around 45 minutes or so, with about a half-hour presentation and some time for Q&A at the end. I encourage everyone, if you have any questions, send them in using the question section. We will do our best to answer each one. And of course, this webinar will be recorded and the slides will be available to all attendees, so don't worry about missing anything. Now, just a bit about our speaker and topic today. As the world has shifted towards a wholly online existence, our focuses have changed and our buying habits have evolved. To fully understand the impact the global adjustment has had on the luxury industry, we will discuss how online traffic, consumer engagement strategies, and sales are changing rapidly as this crisis continues. Our speaker today is Jean-Marc Bellaiche. Jean-Marc is in charge of Contentsquare's global strategy and heads up the global marketing and partners teams. Jean-Marc was a senior partner at the Boston Consulting Group, where he led the global luxury, beauty, and fashion practice. He is known for his strategic vision, excellent communication, and perfect grasp of the challenges and mindset of Contentsquare's clients and partners. I won't keep us all waiting any longer, so without further ado, Jean-Marc, would you like to take it away?
Sure, thank you, John. Happy to be with you today. It's my pleasure to share some very fresh data from Contentsquare and comment that with you. This is dedicated to luxury, and I think you'll find that exciting, at least I hope. So let's move to the next one. One word about the methodology. So at Contentsquare, maybe I should say a few words about Contentsquare, and I will present Contentsquare in a minute, but we capture everything that is happening on the website of our clients. Every movement of the mouse, every movement of the finger is captured by the technology. And so basically, we cover billions of sessions. And in the case of luxury, here in the sample, we have covered close to 1 billion of sessions, which represent 4 billion page views. So 4 billion page views in the recent weeks. And this is a sample comprising 45 global luxury brands. So it's pretty exhaustive. We have traffic from 26 countries in the world, so we can see what's coming from Asia, from Middle East, and we'll deep dive into that in a minute. And of course, this is only online, so we don't have anything about the store. On the next one, to give you a sample about our clients, we cannot quote the name of our clients, but what I can do is put a bunch of logo like this and tell you that we cover 75 of those top brands. And you see we're very strong in hard luxury, so watch, jewelry, very strong in soft luxury, so traditional leather goods and apparel. We cover high luxury brands as well as more accessible luxury brands with slightly lower price point, like Coach, Burberry, or Ralph Lauren as examples. And we also cover multi-brand websites. So this is our sample, and this is what we will see today, 75% of that, plus many other brands, because at the end of the day, this is 45 brands. We've excluded here luxury cosmetics. We have another panel with cosmetics data where I can, if you're interested, please reach out. I'm happy to share what we found on cosmetics. But today it's mostly, true luxury, so watch, jewelry, bags, leather goods, accessories, not beauty yet. On the next one, so one word about Contentsquare. We have 700 clients. So luxury is, of course, a small part of that. We work very well with retailers, from different verticals. We also have banks as clients, insurance company, automotive. Basically, everyone with a big website with a lot of traffic needs to understand what's going on the website. We can help. This represents a community of 12,000 users on 25 countries. we capture every day 10 trillions of interaction. So a swipe, a scroll is an interaction. We have 10 trillion of those. We also capture another number that I like to share. We capture $1.4 billion of e-commerce sales every day, to give you a sample of the size. And we have 650 employees across 7 offices. And the big news, last week, we announced our Series D. We were able to raise $190 million. And so total funding is above $300 million. So we are, I would say, a successful SaaS company, and trying to become the next Adobe, and if not, the next Google. On the next one, just to show you how it works. John didn't mention, but in between BCG and Contentsquare, I spent 4 years at Tiffany Co. I was a member of the executive committee of Tiffany here in New York. And we became a client of Contentsquare. This is how I got to know the technology. And so to show you how it works very, very simply, this is the website of Tiffany. And with Contentsquare, you can turn the website into a dashboard. And so if you click on the next one, you can click on different zones and some data will appear. So here I'm looking at click rates. So 10% of the people will click on the main story, 0.52 on the bracelet on the left, 0.26 on the right, and so on and so forth. And the point of uniqueness of Contentsquare on the next one is that not only we can track click or scrolling or every data, but we also track e-commerce sales. And so we can tell you which content drive which sales. So for example, on the top right, the beautiful Elsa Peretti gold bracelets, when you see this number, and who care what number is it, like $13,000 here, it's not the sales of the bracelet, it's the sales of people that clicked on this image and saw this image and then bought anything else on the website. So it's very strong to understand the influence of content on your website. So that's about Contentsquare. Now let's jump in. The way we've worked with the methodology, we've been tracking week after week sales and transaction, bounce, like tons of data for our clients. And we've been comparing what we call the reference period, which is basically the first 6 weeks of the year, which is a period, a mix of different things. The first 2 weeks are usually super slow after Christmas. And then there might be some sale, and then it picks up a little bit with Valentine. But overall, we think it's a representative reference period. And then week after week, we saw, okay, what's happening this week versus the reference period. I put 2 links here. Don't hesitate to go on our website. It's full of data, not only on luxury, and you have a special link here for luxury, but any other industry of interest we cover. I think we cover 12 industries or 15 industries. So let's jump in. So this is what we saw across industries, so not necessarily speaking about luxury for now. Last week, and all the data I will present is fresh on Sunday. Every Sunday we close the week. So Sunday night, midnight New York time, we close the week. And basically, this is what we've done here. And we compare the week ending last Sunday with the reference. And this is the blue line that you see, the blue dashboard. So what you see is traffic is up compared to the reference period by almost 20%, 19%. You see that the transactions are up 36% compared to before COVID-19. And as a result, the conversion rate is up also 17%. The only metrics that is down, and it's only a small decrease, is actually time per session, -5%. So people go for shorter session. When they buy, they know exactly what they want, they go, they buy, and then they leave. But 5% is not a big change here. But so the news is, despite the reopening, and keep in mind, this is a global sample. So we cover France, for example, where we have very, very strong clients and client base. France has been reopened for 2 weeks now. And yet, e-commerce sales and e-commerce traffic has been up last week compared to before COVID-19. We covered, of course, the US, and the US, I live in New York. New York is not open, but most of the other states are reopened. Most of the Macy's, as we speak, are reopened. And despite that, you see that traffic and transaction were up compared to before COVID-19. On the yellow, we show you the trend week on week. And so it's comparing the week of Sunday, ending Sunday, May 24, with the week ending Sunday, May 17. And here you see the traffic went down. In fact, the traffic was even more up. At some point, I think it was 30, 35% up. And now it's only 20 or 19, but -8 last week. So a strong decrease. And of course, also, the weather is more beautiful. And even if store not open, people go out much, much more. Even in New York, I see people outside with their mask and they try to respect social distancing. But clearly, people are out. And when you're out, you don't do mobile, you don't do desktop, you don't surf on the web, and you don't buy. And transaction have been down by 2%. It's been a couple of weeks, like the last 2 or 3 weeks, it's been down. But again, it means it used to be close to 50%, and now it's back to 36%, which is still very, very strong. And my expectation is that it will continue to remain much above pre-COVID-19 levels. On the next one, yeah, this is basically, before I talk about luxury, I wanted to give you the big picture of what we've seen overall, looking at the last 3 months of crisis. In mid-February and early March, when this thing started, and we were still working, offices were not shut down, people were not in quarantine, schools were open, but we could see people got a little bit of panic, seeing the wave of the tsunami coming, and so food, online supermarkets, banks, and retail healthcare were those 3 sectors that were in surge, like huge increase of traffic and sales at that time. Everything else was pretty much down. It was after Valentine also, so people were less interested in anything else. Tourism, fashion, cosmetics, everything was down. Then comes quarantine, mid-March. In Italy, it was March 9, in France, March 17, here in New York, March 22, so around that period. And at that time, people started to focus on getting equipped for quarantine, meaning buying a lot of retail technology, laptops, Chromebooks, tablets, buying a lot of TVs, games also, like all the consoles, Xbox, Nintendo were up. And then buying a lot of stuff for their home, like home office, buying little desks, chairs, a lot of do-it-yourself also, because you stay home and you see all those problems in your home that you need to fix, and now it's time to fix it. Sport and equipment was huge. We have 62 million people that belong to a gym in the US. And guess what? All the gyms are closed. So what do? You buy weights, you buy elastics, you buy balls, you buy mats in order to exercise at home. And this is what happened a lot. And then the last category that was very much up was also cosmetics, because those guys, they bifurcated very early on towards soap and hand cleaning and hand caring, because people are washing their hands like crazy, and all the hand cream are working very well. So this was the beginning of the quarantine. Food was up and down because there were a lot of supply chain issues in food, but for those who were able to deliver, clearly it was up. But tourism was down, fashion was down, luxury was not doing well, jewelry was not doing well. And then comes April and early May. And here, starting early April, it seems that people start to say, okay, this is my life now for another month or 2 or 3 months, and I need to buy stuff. And so everything was up. Even non-consumable like fashion, luxury, jewelry start to pick up, recover. And at some point, we're even going beyond pre-COVID-19 level. The only problem child was tourism and events. Those 2 sectors are still struggling a lot. And now mid-May, with the reopening, we've seen a new phase where basically traffic and transaction have stopped to grow and somehow decrease. You've seen this week a big decrease for traffic in particular, but still remained quite high versus normal. And then, the change in the sectors, like it's early days, but tourism is up in a big way. For the last couple of weeks, tourism has been up double digit. It's still very, very, very small, but from instead of minus 90%, they are now minus 70%. So it's a tripling somehow. And let's see what's the next step will be. Now let's focus on luxury. All right, so luxury. Here I show you the traffic week by week, starting from the reference period, which was the first 6 weeks of the year at 100, and then to see how week after week the traffic has changed. You see that at the beginning of the crisis, the traffic was down quite a bit. it reached actually minus 35% mid-March. So, people were not interested in luxury, and frankly, I can understand. In a time where we were counting death and people were very worried, not the time to buy your next bag or your next luxury watch. And so the traffic was down quite a bit. You'll see in a minute the transactions also were equally down. But you can see that starting late March and then April and May, traffic started to go up and up and up and up. And now I would say it's back to normal. It's back to pre-COVID-19 levels. Last week was actually a small decrease for the first time in many, many weeks. But the week before was also a peak. And I think there was Mother's Day the week before in the US. So, maybe that peak is explained by Mother's Day. But if you take out this peak, you can still see a trend towards a recovery in terms of traffic. So traffic back to normal, not better, but not too bad. Next one, we look at engagement, time per session. Are people spending more time online, less time online? And you see this time per session was for luxury pretty stable. Last week was shorter sessions. Again, because of Mother's Day, it might be that people knew exactly what they wanted. I want this, I buy, I'm in and out. Maybe a lot of men are buying, and men are sometimes shorter when it comes to luxury. They go to the essential for their mother. And so that could be an explanation. And last week was back to normal level. So nothing really to say in terms of consumer engagement, no big change. This same curve, for example, for supermarkets, we've seen a huge spike of engagement because people are chasing products. They're chasing toilet paper, especially in March and early April. They were looking for all those products that they couldn't find. And that's why we see an engagement that was higher. But here for luxury, it's pretty much stable. Transaction. So you see, first is 6 weeks at an index 100, and then we went down to pretty much minus 40 in late Feb, early March. And then from there, boom, a very strong increase, much stronger than in traffic, in fact, because we were able to get to plus 40. So from minus 40, we went to plus 40. It's almost a doubling of the business, from an index 80, you get to 140. So it's not exactly a doubling, but very strong increase. And you see, there is some fluctuation. Actually, the purchase were down for Mother's Day. So the traffic was up, but the purchase were down. Not sure why. But last week was a good week for luxury, where I think they gained another seven points. So in any case, even with the store reopening for the last couple of weeks, you see that we didn't see such a drop of luxury transaction online. And I think my thesis here is that it's here to last. In a way, sometimes I say that we were able to make 3 years of e-commerce growth in 3 months. Why is that? Because basically we often say, okay, e-commerce is growing at 10-15% per year. So you do that for 3 years and you get to 40%, 40, 35, 40%. And this is what we got. So 40% growth in 3 months. And my perspective, my intuition is that it's gonna stay in that range. It might go back to 30 and some week will be on, who knows. But I think we are up to stay. And the main reason is that we created some habits. We created some new, some consumer maybe were not used to buy luxury before, were not used to put their credit card and buy, multi-thousands of dollars just in one transaction. And now they did it, and they see it works. And so they're going to continue to do it. And that's why I think this level of 40%, so more or less will remain. Maybe it might be 20, 25, 30, but I think we won't get back to 100. What's interesting here, I show you the transactions, so same curve for luxury, but I include cosmetics and fashion. And you see 3 different stories because these are adjacent categories, so sometimes I like to cover them all at once. You see that for cosmetics, it was pretty much very good from the beginning. Even before confinement, people were looking for soap, people were looking for hand cleaning, hand caring product, and they did very, very well. And it's true for mass cosmetics. It's also true for luxury cosmetics. And there were some phases at some point people were looking for hair color as well. So that's why this sector has been, in the doubling every week compared to reference. Fashion, you see, started later. And frankly, here the main driver was promotion, especially promotion in the US. If I do the curve in the US, the spike would be much higher for fashion. I think in the US, fashion players were extremely aggressive with promotion, and thanks to promotion, they were able to sustain some kind of good business. Luxury was much slower to recover, but you can see that now, it is close to fashion, and somehow luxury has done quite well in April and May. And as a result, the conversion rate is up 36%. You've seen it was up 60% at some point, went down, and then last week was up again. So it might fluctuate a little bit, but because transactions are up much more than traffic, you have people that come to buy, and also because the store is difficult to access for many, they come to buy and they transact. So this was high level. Now let's deep dive into countries. As I told you, this data that I shared with you is covering 26 countries. So I've aggregated a few countries to highlight a few things. You have on the left the traffic and on the right the transactions. I will focus more on the transaction because I think this is the most important thing. You can see that US and UK, the two blue curve here, are doing quite well. They are both in the plus 60, plus 70% versus normal. You can see that Asia, which is the purple curve, did okay on traffic last 2 weeks, although some decrease, but a big peak 2 weeks ago. And then you can see that the last 2 weeks in terms of transaction have not been as good. Right now, Asia is only plus 20%. And you can see that Middle East and France are the two regions or countries where there is more struggle, probably for different reasons. I guess in Middle East the crisis on oil didn't help, and for France, I think the French consumer have been very reluctant to buy luxury in the last few months and weeks, and it's a small market anyway for luxury. But it's interesting to see that the pink curve, France is the one that did dive the most. At some point we had some weeks minus 70%, and now they just recovered. They are back to normal, but it took 3 months, and they lost a lot of business. Now, in our sample, we're able to cut it in different ways. So the first cut I would like to share with you is to oppose hard luxury goods with soft luxury goods. So hard luxury goods is watch, jewelry, things like that, and then soft is apparel, leather goods, accessories. You can see on the left, traffic-wise, the curve were pretty similar, but recently soft did slightly better than hard. But when it comes to transaction, it's the opposite. Hard luxury has done extremely well the last couple of weeks. And even if there was some correction recently, again, Mother's Day was there somewhere, so might have played a role. But still, you can see that hard luxury has been overperforming soft luxury for many weeks. And what's interesting to me is that in 2008, I was with BCG. Even in 2001, I was with BCG. And at the time, when we looked at how luxury was reacting to the crisis, it was the opposite. Soft luxury goods were doing much better than hard luxury goods. And the one reason I found at the time was that soft luxury goods, there is an urgency to buy. Like this, the sneaker of the season, the bag of the season. You want to buy it now, and if you miss it, you miss it. Versus a Tiffany bracelet, a Cartier bracelet, or a Rolex watch, you can always buy it in 6 months because this product is there forever. So that was the logic at the time, to postpone maybe hard and to go for urgent purchase for soft. But with the confinement, I think it's the opposite in a way. You don't need a bag, you don't need a new suit because you don't go out that much, and that's why soft has been softer and hard has done quite well. And most of the Mother's Day gift seems to have gone to hard luxury. On the next one, we look here at high luxury versus accessible luxury. So if I take a bag, I would say accessible luxury is anything in between $400 for a bag up to $1,000. and high luxury would be $1,500 entry price point up to a couple of thousands of dollars. So in high luxury you'll have all the big brands like the Hermes, the Louis Vuitton of this world, and in accessible you might have the Coach, Burberry, and here I'm quoting names of clients and non-clients to mix it up. And what we've seen here is high luxury has done quite better than accessible luxury. Despite a correction last 2 weeks, where the gap is closing quite a bit, but this is something we've seen. And here, opposite to soft and hard, in 2008, it was exactly the same. Usually, high luxury is much more resistant to crisis because for three main reasons. Number one, those brands are very strong brands. They are, the mega brands, and basically they keep value. So, I can buy a Rolex watch, I'm safe. A Rolex watch is a Rolex watch. I can always sell it back. Same for, Tiffany, Cartier, Hermes, all those brands. If you're more accessible brands like Coach, maybe the bag has less value than an Hermes bag. And so, people have the tendency in period of crisis to go for, where value is. And number two, obvious one too, by definition, the accessible luxury brands, they target a broader set of consumers. They target mass affluent consumer. And the mass affluent consumer are probably more impacted by financial crisis than the super affluent people. In other words, if you're a billionaire, you're a billionaire, right? And it's not going to change. This crisis is not going to change much. You can still buy from the brands you love. If you're, if you make some money but you're not that rich, you might be more impacted, and that's why. And the third reason is CRM. And relationship management. The high luxury brands have usually a very tight relation with their consumers. They have personal shoppers that can call the consumers, that can orient the consumers, they can even drive the consumer to buy online, and this is what we see. Last cut, we oppose here brand websites. So, remember on my sample, I have many sites of brands, and then I have also a few multi-brand website, which are a mix of pure player, like Net-a-Porter, Yoox, Farfetch, and again, some of them are clients, some are not, and then also department stores. And you can see here the brand have been the one doing much better. And again, it's logical. I think first, when you're online and you want a Gucci product, you have always a temptation to go on Gucci versus going on those multi-brand. And number two, I think some of the multi-brand here are pure players. And for pure players, when you see a positive trend, because this is their business, it's very good. For all the orange and even all the curves that I saw before, when you see an increase of even 50% of your business online, but if your stores are closed, you're still in big problems. So in a way, they have more to compensate. The brand have more to compensate because they need retail. Some of the multi-brand are pure player and they don't need retail. So in a way, when you see positive, it's positive. So that's basically the data I wanted to share with you. We are right on the 2:30 timeline. As a conclusion, just to summarize and then give you a few recommendations that I have on the next slide. On this one, what to keep from that? Traffic dropped a lot. You remember -35, and now it's back to normal. Transactions were up in March and April, late March, in fact, after going down. And there was some fluctuation, but we're still at 40% above pre-crisis level. So again, keep in mind, I think it's a nice tagline. We made 3 years of e-commerce growth in luxury in 3 months. The sales volume increase is particularly strong in the US. And somehow in the UK, Asia has done well in traffic, but not so well in transaction. France and Middle East are struggling. And then in terms of segmentation, high luxury brands are doing much better than accessible. Hard luxury brands are doing much better than soft, which is new to me in times of crisis. And then brands are doing better than multi-brands. And on the last one, I wanted to leave you with some personal thoughts. I think two key recommendations. The first one, if you run a luxury business, it's time to invest in digital acquisition. I know many companies have decided to cut marketing, and I understand. But while I could understand that we cut print and outdoor and anything physical, I could also understand that we cut digital marketing that is more influencing marketing and brand building and things like that. I don't understand why we cut ROI centered campaign that are here to sell a given product. Because the way I think about it is, if you step back, e-commerce is only 10% of total sales in luxury. I think BCG said 8, so I rounded it to 10. Okay. At some point in March and April, 90% of the business was gone. Okay, so you had 10% to compete with. But now, if we had another crisis, but not a sanitary crisis, and the store were open, but like very similar major crisis, economics, many millions of tens of millions of unemployed people, etc., same thing, but stores were open. The luxury business would not have gone minus 90%. Doesn't exist. Maybe minus 30, minus 40. Okay, take minus 50. But in fact, the gap between the 10% e-commerce and the 50% that maybe we would have lost, but then the other 50% would have been business, is a 40% that we could have captured with the right stimulation, with the right incentive, with the right communication. And that's why I think it's time to invest online. And now that stores are open, it's the same thing, because I don't expect traffic to go back to store to the same level than before. And I expect that the move to online will accelerate. So I think it's time to move marketing money towards online. It's time to do very ROI-centered campaigns. And then the second big pillar is it's time to invest more in your website and your app experience. Many luxury brands are spending tens of millions in store refurbishment. And I'm not saying they should not do it. I understand why they do it. We did it at Tiffany. It's expensive. It's a price to pay. But at the same time, I'm shocked with how small they spend online on their website, on their e-store. They should aim at doing an e-store that is as beautiful than the palace they have in Italy or France or New York. And they should spend to understand what's happening on their website. They should spend to really optimize the experience of their consumer. And of course, this is something where Contentsquare can help. So the second point is a little bit self-serving, but I wanted to raise it because I think, to me, there is a bit of a gap between how important e-commerce is and digital is, the website is, and how little brands are spending.
All right, Jean-Marc, thank you.
Do you have a question, John?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jean-Marc. We do have a couple of questions. So we'll just jump right into it. Regarding luxury, how much of this growth online may not remain to be long-term at this level once stores reopen fully?
As I said, I think most of it will remain. I think there are some new habits. There are some people that have placed a purchase for the first time of their life on luxury website, and they've seen it work. It's working. They got the delivery, nice package, everything. They're going to continue. So I wouldn't, I don't have a crystal ball. I cannot say if the 40% will remain, but I think the bulk of it will remain. Maybe 30 of the 40 will remain. Maybe 25 of the 30 will remain.
Okay. Pre-crisis, some accessible luxury brands were struggling to rein in deep discounts that damaged the integrity of their brand and overall their bottom line. Those who were able to move away from discounting, do you see them having to reverse course to save the coming quarters, thus undoing their progress?
Well, that's a tough one. I come from a school with Tiffany, obviously, where discount is not good. So I would agree that when you start discounting, you give up something. You give up a bit of your brand. You give up the confidence that the consumer put in your brand. When you buy an expensive product, you want to make sure you pay the right price. And if the price is the price, then this is the right price. If the price can go minus 20, minus 30, minus 35, you never know if you pay the right price. And you have always a temptation to wait for more. So I think it's dangerous to go very much discount. Now, of course, not all the brands have the same business model. When you're in fashion, you need to do some discount, although Louis Vuitton is not doing discount. But I would say my bet is that when you're a brand like Louis Vuitton and you've never done any discount because this is part of who you are, I don't expect that to change. I think Tiffany, same thing. I would be very surprised if Tiffany start to put discounts. I think it would be a big problem if they start doing that. Short term, it might be good. You're right. You might save a few quarter or two. You might even grow. You know, when I was at Tiffany, sometimes as a joke, I was saying, okay, let's open 100 outlet stores. If you open 100 outlet stores, I tell you, you can add another $1 billion for the short term, but it won't last.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you think that the surge online compensates for the missing turnover from brick and mortar?
Sorry, I need 1 second because there is noise in my home.
Okay.
All right, this is the joy of working from home. Sorry, John.
No problem. I'll repeat it. Do you think that the surge online that you mentioned compensates for the missing turnover from brick and mortar?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not, because look again, on average, e-commerce is 10% of sales, total sales. 90 was gone for a few months. Even if luxury was up 50% a few weeks, for a few weeks, or 40%, then the 10 becomes 15, but you still have 85 that are gone. Now, one thing that we didn't, I think the 85 is not exactly 85. I need to precise something. Many luxury companies, because they have such a strong relationship with their consumer, they had their salespeople continue to work from home. And calling their clients and say, hey, what do you need? What do you want? And then go to the store themselves, take the product, pack it, and then UPS it, and then done. So you have some sales that have happened. Retail was not completely zero during that period. But what was it? Maybe 10 points, 20 points, I don't know. So you take the 10% of e-commerce, becomes 15, let's say. You had maybe 10, 15, but I think, it's minus 60 for many, many, many players. And again, this is average. Some will do much better, some will do worse.
Mm-hmm.
Like Tiffany, for example, e-commerce is much bigger for us. So, for Tiffany, that the growth would have more positive impact. But I think they will, I don't expect any luxury company to announce positive quarter. It will never compensate. Minimum would be minus 40 in my book.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, would you say that now is a good time for newcomers to break into the hard luxury market?
Yeah, look, it could be a good time because I think there is a reset, right? Beyond the crisis, beyond shifting behavior online, we see a lot of change, right? We've seen, Giorgio Armani had this this article that was well noted, where he condemned that fashion is getting crazy, like too many shows. Gucci has decided to reduce the number of shows. So something is going to happen, and the new luxury is going to be different than the old luxury. So many rules being broken, and maybe that's a good time to try something also in hard luxury. Why not? At the same time, we are in an economic crisis. I don't think it's going to be a short one. I don't have a crystal ball, and maybe I'm completely wrong. But from what I read, from my discussion with my BCG friends, expectations are that the next 12 to 18 months might be difficult, and so pushing a new business in a difficult context is never good. But yes, it's also a time of change. So why not?
Well, I think we will finish on one last question, which is definitely a theme in the questions that we're getting here today. From your perspective, do you think the online experience will ever replace the physical experience?
Frankly, no. I think in luxury, you will always enjoy the store. I think you will always enjoy the contact with salespeople, the feeling of being treated in a nice way, the experience in store. So I don't expect that one day will be a completely virtual world where there will be no more luxury stores and everything will be online. It's not like books or music, right? CDs. Also, you can digitalize book and CD. You cannot digitalize the product. So no, but at the same time, I don't expect e-commerce to remain at 8 or 10% of total sales. I think a good balance could be 20. Some luxury department store in the US are already making 25-30% of their business online. So it could be the case for the whole industry also in Europe. This is a good range, 20, 25, 30. Why not?
Well, Jean-Marc, I think we'll leave it there, but I just want to take the time to thank you so much for giving a wonderful presentation and answering each question in such depth and range. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Thank you, John. It was a pleasure to be with you.
No problem. To the attendees, I quickly just want to mention that we have a great webinar coming up on the 2nd on feeling confident in times of uncertainty during the workplace as things start to open up. Moods change and perspectives are going to differ. So it will be very interesting to hear from Francis Scholl on his perspective. Now, Jean-Marc, once again, thank you so much for taking the time. Have everybody who attended, I expect to see you on the 2nd, and have a great rest of your week. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.